Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I'm so excited today. We've been quite a while getting the schedule sorted, but we did, to have Ajeet Singh here with us. Ajeet is the co-founder and executive chairman of ThoughtSpot. You may know him actually from his previous role at Nutanix, which we'll talk about in a bit. So over the past 8 years, Ajeet has been really driving strategy and product vision for this company as whose goal is really about democratizing data with an idea that they want Google's for numbers as a vision for their analytics solution. The company is in Gartner's 2021 Magic Quadrant for analytics as a visionary. Currently has a valuation, and these numbers may be old by now, of $2 billion and about $100 million in ARR, and is rumored to be one of next year's hottest IPOs. So we'll all stay tuned for that. So Ajeet, let me bring you forward and just thank you again for joining us today. So much to learn. So I thought we could start just with hearing a little bit about. You had this great success at Nutanix, which would be great to hear a little bit about. But then you chose ThoughtSpot. So out of all the options you had in the world, how did you come to choose ThoughtSpot as the problem that you were going to work on next? Because I suspect you chose it because it was an interesting problem.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, actually, I like to spend a lot of time studying markets and problems before I jump in to try and solve the problems that exist um, in that market. So, ThoughtSpot came about because what I had seen, in fact, before starting Nutanix, I used to work at one of the early big data companies called Astrodata. This was 2007, 2008, and Hadoop was just a new thing that was starting at the time. And what I saw was that people were able to capture a lot of data. They were able to store and process it at a much, much larger scale, much cheaper, faster, better than what they were able to do with older technology. But how that data was delivered to the end users, how that was consumed by the end users, the business people, the sales, marketing, HR people, doctors, nurses, other people who can actually use the data to make decisions, that process was still very old and very manual. You would use a dashboarding tool, and there were new ones like Tableau and Click and Power BI. These were new dashboarding tools that were coming out that were very rich in visual expression of data. You could build charts and dashboards that look amazing, but that still required experts to do that job. And whenever you have experts involved, it limits the potential of what the world can do. So our goal was to figure out a way to make data really accessible and open it up to everyone. Just like Google has made information very accessible, we said, why can't access to data be as easy as a simple search engine? And that was the genesis of the idea. And it looked like a very large market where some very significant companies have been built. It looked like a market that was growing really fast for a $20+ billion market. Growing at 12-15% is very, very high growth rate. And the technology that was sort of very popular at the time was at least 15 years old. So my view is that if you have a very large market where technology has become old, there is an opportunity always to build something fundamentally new, and that was the impetus for us to go after this problem.
Wow. So I know you have a super interesting co-founder, Ajeet, because I watched some of his talks online.
Mhm.
Would you say a little bit about how you found him or chose him, and how the two of you work together?
Yeah, Amit Prakash. I'm really blessed to have Amit as my co-founder, and picking a co-founder is a pretty significant decision actually when you're starting a company. It's sort of a professional marriage, if you will. So there is a lot of things that you have to consider. But for me, it comes down to two very simple things. One, I want to work with people that are really smart. So a good mind, good brain, sharp people that are driven to solve big problems, but also people with a very good heart, very good and big heart. And Amit was really, an amazing combination of these two, which is very rare to find in people. And he and I had gone to the same undergrad school back in India. So I had known of him. I hadn't known him a lot, but when I was starting ThoughtSpot, we reconnected and we spoke. He had been at Google for 5 years. Before that, he was at Microsoft. On Microsoft Bing, he was one of the early engineers to work on search at Microsoft, and he had a PhD from UT Austin. So really strong background, very smart, very humble and hungry, and a really really good person. And I don't think I could have chosen a better co-founder than
That's
him.
wonderful. Yeah, how do the two of you work together? Do you just have separate swim lanes that you've carved out, or is there a lot of collaboration that goes on?
Yeah, so at ThoughtSpot, we've tried to sort of build a culture where we operate in a boundaryless manner. Obviously, knowing what our primary responsibilities are, that is very, very important. But at the same time, having a culture where people are not saying, "This is not my job, so I'm not going to do it," or "This is not your job, so stay away from it." So we don't want either of these two things in our company. So it's not just Amit and I; it's how we operate as a company. So it's been great. Amit is very strong technically, and my background has been more in product. So we just work together and we figure it out.
Yeah, complimentary. That's great. Yeah, I remember in one of the things I took away from my early experience at Compaq and have subsequently seen with clients is just this idea of it needs to be okay to color outside the lines a little bit. And if you get too far into someone else's area with only opinion and not data, then then you go back. But not to leave that space because either you're risk averse to it or because you're not wanted. But to be able to, that's where all the richness often happens, is in sort of the edges between these boundaries that we often
Yeah,
define
yeah,
for ourselves.
and that's why people do startups. People don't do startup to sit inside a tight box that is defined
Exactly.
for them. They want to do their primary job and what they're really good at, but they also want to learn and they want to expand their skills and they want to make an impact that is much much bigger than what they've done before. So we have to create those opportunities for people, and that's how I've tried to recruit people. That's how I've tried to build the team, that people are able to really express themselves in a much broader way.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Must be a very rich culture to work in. So at ThoughtSpot, you're solving, if I've got the quote right, solving a human scale problem, right? Also a user experience problem. So one of the things that I heard Ameet say, which is just so concise and so true, is that AI is good for solving low stakes repeated questions, right? And so there was actually a Gartner review that came out this week that talked about the things AI is good at and AI is not good at, and how it
Mhm.
really will help us in the future. It's not something to be afraid of unless you're someone who is repeatedly solving these repeated questions, right? And that will free us up to do other more interesting things. So could you describe a little bit about how ThoughtSpot sort of does this? I know you're a relational search platform and you use natural language, but how does ThoughtSpot actually solve this problem?
Yeah. So when we were starting, like I said, we wanted to make access to data very easy for everyone, and we said everybody knows search. It's basically we have to come out with a user experience that meets the common denominator when it comes to data skills. It can't be something that people have to go training class for and spend 3 days and learn. We said search is that user experience metaphor that everyone is very comfortable with, whether it is Google or Amazon or Yelp, or you're ordering food, whatever you're doing, there is a search box, and that's how you actually
Yeah.
find what you're looking for. So we said let's do the same thing for data, and maybe we were a bit naive in thinking that it can be easily done, but we experimented a lot with all the open source search technology that was available. But what we realized was that search was done more for unstructured data, for web pages, documents that don't have that don't look like tables, that don't have numbers, that don't have relationships that are defined inside these very complex databases and data lakes that exist. So that's a very, very different search problem. And here, we couldn't use anything off the shelf. We couldn't go read a paper and say, let's go just build what is described in this paper. We actually had to go to the whiteboard and figure out a new kind of search technology that works for numbers, because numbers, they need to add up. They are complex. Data can be spread across multiple data sources. You have HR data, marketing data, healthcare data. All kinds of data exists in a lot of different databases: Oracle, IBM, SAP, Teradata. Now in the cloud, you have Snowflake and Google BigQuery, and a lot of these other databases that have come about. This data is very different from the kind of data that Google crawls. So we had to build a new search engine that understands everything that sits inside these databases, whether it's tables, joins, what type of data it is, all of that. So on the surface, we look like a search engine, simple search engine, but under the hood, it's a massive number crunching machine that uses various techniques. AI is um, definitely useful when it comes to understanding user behavior, being able to predict what they might be interested in searching. Um, but it's like building a new car. If you look at Tesla, what they have done, it's not just one thing that they have done. They built a completely new experience, which has batteries. It's very software driven. There is so many sensors and cameras. So when people say, what's the secret sauce, of course, it's at a high level search engine, but under the hood there is a lot that we had to do. And when you try to do this for business data, which also requires security and governance, it gets really complicated. It gets really, really complicated.
Well, I'm sure you could have chosen a more complex problem, but I'm hard pressed in the moment to think about what it would have been. Very, very difficult. Maybe best explain, can you give us some examples
Yeah.
from some of your, I know you have a lot of sort of big, well-known clients. Maybe there's some interesting examples you could share.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at a customer like Canadian Tire, they are one of the largest retailers in Canada, and you have these merchants who are doing online and offline merchandising. They're deciding what they should be promoting, what should be stocked where, how much we should be selling, all of that. Now they're not. Their day job is to figure out what kind of shirts will sell better, for example.
Yeah.
They're not data scientists. They don't want to be spending hours and hours going through raw data and figuring out what's going on. And in fact, when COVID happened, there is so much change that happened for all the retailers. Demands completely shifted. You
Of
had
course.
different kinds of things being bought in different places. People were running out of tissue paper, so suddenly there was a lot of demand for tissue papers because everybody wanted to buy more tissue
Sure. We're
paper.
all buying shirts, no one's buying pants. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So with all of that, we are able to enable their merchants to really look at trends in their sales data and understand what is selling, what kind of shirts are selling more, should I be buying more medium-sized shirts or large shirts, and so on. Earlier, they would have to go to a data expert and say, "Oh, I want to understand trends of shirt sales or tissue paper sales," and it could take them 3 weeks for someone to build a report for them, because there is only so many people that are sitting out there that are building reports, and you have thousands of people asking for this data. So in the world, for every one data person, there is almost 1,000 business
Okay.
people who are not data people, right? So there's a huge mismatch between this demand and supply. Um, and with our technology, we're really able to make data accessible. We have Unilever, where you might have people from finance team that are looking at business and again sales trends, and they can figure out what to do across the businesses, what kind of products they should be launching, what where investment should happen. A lot of important decisions. We have a retailer in actually a drug store and they had to distribute vaccines. They were able to look at trends coming from public data during COVID to say where COVID is happening more, and how should we prioritize distribution of vaccine through COVID. So there's been a lot of really interesting use cases that we have found. We have one of the largest sportswear companies as customers. I couldn't name them because they are very protective of their brand, but they told us that they were able to figure out some of these containers that fell off a ship as shipments were happening.
Yes.
Uh, their stuff was being imported, and that would not have been possible if it wasn't for ThoughtSpot, because we really bring together the understanding of data and understanding of business. That's been the challenge with everything else that is out there in the market, the dashboarding technology. People that understand data, they're different from people that understand business. So there is this split brain problem, and it takes 3 weeks for them to have one discussion. I want this report. That's one question, and it comes back in 3 weeks. So if you have somebody who understands business and they can interact with this data continuously, they can find insights that would otherwise not be possible.
Yes. We need the Vulcan mind meld. Maybe that will be version 2.0. But yeah, it is a split brain problem, and we tend to, sort of follow our strengths, and then if we can work with people who have these other competencies, then we can minimize our blind spots. I'm
Yep.
fascinated by this 1 to 1,000, which I guess doesn't surprise me in terms of the ratio between people that do these two different types of jobs. I guess probably it doesn't need to be much different than that, as long as there's good software support so that the questions can be asked, and software can do the work.
Yeah, I mean, the
Right, once it's
technology,
properly set up. Yeah,
yeah, technology engineering is all about creating leverage in the world.
exactly.
Whether it was the industrial revolution or it's the technology revolution that's happening now. It's all about leverage, and there shouldn't be more data people. In fact, we should enable more and more people to work with customers, become doctors, sell, market. There should be HR people taking care of people. We don't need to have armies and armies of people building reports. I like to call them report factories. You don't have to run report factories to create a data-driven business. In fact, you succeed like that. If you look at why the web companies, the likes of Google and Amazon and Facebook and all of these, they have become so successful. It is not because they've hired more. They're very data-driven businesses. The online retailers, they can understand every single thing that you do online and optimize the products they offer to you based on data and who you are. That's not because somebody's sitting there and building reports about Karen's preference for buying, groceries.
Right.
There's nobody like that. It's only possible with technology, and that is what we want to do for everyone. It shouldn't be limited to just a few of these very large mega web corporations. Every business, whether it is big or small, should have the opportunity to become a data-driven business. And that is what we are doing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful vision, and I know you're being successful. I hope you're successful in bringing it to the masses soon. I'd like to turn just a little bit now to you and your leadership, because that is a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and I know to some people who are watching as well. So I saw a quote where you said leadership is about great mind and great heart, which is both completely memorable and beautiful. How did that come to you? What does that mean for you in your leadership?
Yeah, I think if I remember the context, as I was discussing with you how I chose to work with Amit as a co-founder. In general, that's sort of the people that I've tried to surround myself with, people with great minds and great heart. And that's a big part of the leadership, because by great mind, I mean people that have, good knowledge and good intuition about things.
Yes.
And that's important because you need to have good knowledge, because the problems you're solving, if you completely are unaware of the challenges that are involved, then you wouldn't be able to even make a first attempt. But you also need to have good intuition that allows you to keep iterating. Whatever you do, you might be a super expert, but you have to have an open mind so that you can learn and iterate.
Right.
A lot of assumptions you will make will not work out. But I also want to surround myself with positive people, people with a good heart, because it has to be fun and has to be a positive experience. That's the sort of culture that we try to create at ThoughtSpot, where, we'll make mistakes, we will have ups and downs, but it'll be a positive experience for people. People will come and enjoy working there. They will grow. They will learn, and that is a very, very important part for me. Now, leadership is such a broad and fascinating topic, as you know, Karen. We could spend a lot of time talking about it. But one important thing when it comes to leadership is for me to see myself as the bottom of the pyramid. I look at the pyramid as inverted. It's not our job to sit at the top and tell everyone what to do, but to be at the bottom and really raise everybody up. That should be our goal. So I've always tried to, and I'm not, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to become better at many of these dimensions, but I try and think of myself as someone who's there to help everybody else in the company. In fact, I like to call myself the chief coffee maker. My job is to serve coffee to everyone because they are so smart. They're so good at what they do. They can do anything. If you can find a big market, if you can find the right problem to work on, the only other thing you need to do is to recruit good people and create an environment where you serve them and they feel like it's their company, and it is, because the people that we hire, they're really good, and they could be at any of these other companies making a lot of money, and maybe not having to go through the ups and downs of building a startup. Right? They come to work
Right.
at ThoughtSpot. It's very important that I feel and I know that it is their company as much as it is mine.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. You're not the first CEO to talk with me about how um, grateful they are for the people who work for them, because as you said, they can work anywhere today, and so it really speaks volumes to the fact that you have an interesting problem for people to work on. They see themselves being successful at solving that problem, and they have a culture in which they feel respected and they're able to do their work collaboratively,
Yeah.
which sort of sounds like heaven in terms of a work environment, right?
No, I can't say that everything is perfect, but
I,
we
I
try.
know I know you have everyone has their problems, right? All organizations do, but how wonderful to have that intention and an organization that is that's bound to that intention as well. So kudos for that. Speaking of employees, how do you go about hiring people? I know there is a semi-famous story, at least, about you hanging out at a Starbucks. Maybe you could talk more about that, and then any other tips you have in terms of good hiring process.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'm not a huge fan of the term employee because that sounds like, you recruit some
Just
people, you
hired.
pay them some money, and they do a job.
Yes.
I always refer to everyone on the team as team members. So, recruiting is something I'm very passionate about. And it takes a lot of focus and hard work. I think the story you're referring to is the first couple of years at ThoughtSpot. I probably had more than 100, coffee meetings at the Starbucks on Pier Avenue near Google, because it was on the way to work, and I was trying to recruit a lot of really good engineers out of Google and other tech companies that are in the area to work with us. And my approach has been to understand deeply who people are, because it is very important that what we have to offer is the right thing for them.
Yes.
I try to sort of evaluate it from their perspective. I want to know that they are really passionate about building something, going to a startup. If you are at Google or any other company, there's a lot of good opportunities out there. I don't want to recruit someone for whom ThoughtSpot will not be a great opportunity.
Right.
In fact, I try to do this 30-day test. 30-day into a job, I would ask people that I recruited directly, would you still join the company? If you knew everything about the company, would you still join? And I want that answer to be yes. And if that answer is not yes, then I'm not doing a good job of recruiting. So I love meeting people, getting to know what their aspirations are, where they are in life, what they want to do long term, what might they want to learn, what are the challenges in their current roles, things like that. And then we run a very transparent process. We make sure that they meet enough people at ThoughtSpot so that they get a 360-degree view of the good, bad, ugly. We try and make sure that they are aware of the challenges that exist in the job so that they are not surprised. In fact, good people should be excited about solving those challenges. We don't, of course, want to have people that will just come in and expect there are no challenges.
Right.
Then we probably don't need to be recruiting any more people. So that's the general approach, and it's worked out okay so far.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, your A players won't stay with no challenges, right? The people that you want, the people that you're looking for and describing, are there because of the challenge. Wonderful to be able to get those all lined up. I just have one final question for you. It's a question that I ask all the people I'm in conversation with here, and that is the tagline for my business is up and to the right, because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be.
Mhm.
Was there a moment in your career as you look back when you knew that you were moving in that direction?
Yeah, if you look at my career, in fact, most people's career, sometimes it might look like it was a well crafted, planned thing that have played out over multiple decades. But as you know, that's not the case. It's always a bunch of, good or bad accidents that happen along the way that lead you to where you are. So I've tried to, one thing in my career, every few years, I have found new kinds of areas to work in. I started actually, my first job was a management consultant. 1 year I did that. I didn't like it. I was just producing PowerPoints and that wasn't exciting. Then I moved to tech. I was doing product management in supply chain area. I2 Technologies used to be a big company back in the day. Then I went to Honeywell. There I worked on aerospace software. I mean, it's a very very different domain. But I got to work with IDEO, the design firm, and I learned
Oh,
about design
wow.
thinking back in 2003, 2004, long time ago. So and then I came to the Valley, worked at a but worked at Oracle actually for a short time. Did a startup in the data space. Then we started Nutanix, which was IT infrastructure, virtualization, and now we're doing HubSpot. So I always enjoy learning new things, doing new things. It keeps life interesting. But the north star for me has really been people. I have not chased a certain position and a particular career graph that I'm, manager. I want to be a director or a senior director or VP, wherever. I found the best people that I could work with. I just, figured out what I could be doing with them, and that's been the story of my career. So it might look like a planned thing and up into the right, but it's I think it's not a straight line.
No, not a straight line.
But I do love your tagline. That should
Thank
be
you.
the intention, for
Yeah.
people and for the world itself.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, few things in life are a straight line, but it sounds to me like maybe the moment for you, whether conscious or unconscious, was figuring out the kind of people you wanted to work with, and
Yeah,
and getting
absolutely.
yourself in those situations. Yeah,
Right, right.
as opposed to on day 14 at Honeywell something happened. So, which is completely consistent with how you presented yourself during this conversation. So thank you. Again, thank you for being here. I've learned a lot. I know that our audience has as well, and I wish you and all of your ThoughtSpot team members the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you
Take,
so much, Karen.
take
Thanks
good
for
care.
yeah. Thank you.